Good afternoon everyone and welcome to Thursday's episode of the M Word. My name's Robin, I'm the Technical Director of Man & Machine in the UK, and as always it's a pleasure to have you with us this afternoon. So those of you that are new to these sessions, we air them most Thursdays at 2 o'clock. We attempt to do every Thursday, but most Thursdays at 2 o'clock we run these sessions as kind of a virtual tea break, a virtual coffee break, and a chance to share a tip, a trick, some new functionality or an industry workflow or something inside of one of the Autodesk tools or design tools that we support here at Man & Machine in the UK. So over the weeks we've done some 3ds Max, Inventor, Revit, Fusion, AutoCAD, and a whole different range of different subjects on those particular tools. More recently what we've been doing is we've been putting polls up on our LinkedIn channel and on our LinkedIn page for you guys to vote on, so you can get a say in what you would like to see week on week. The poll's been running since Monday, Tuesday, can't really remember which day it was put up, but this week it's been decided by you, the viewers, that we're going to be covering phasing and design options inside of Revit. I say it was decided by you guys. It was actually a draw, I think, between frame generator in Revit, in Inventor Professional, and design options inside of Revit. We did Inventor last week or Fusion last week, so we'll do a construction-based one this week, and then we'll do frame generator next week in next week's episode. So thank you for joining us this afternoon. Don't forget to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and give us some feedback. Let us know what questions you have, what you like, what you don't like, and what you would like to see during these sessions. Let's try and make them as specific as we can for you guys and as interesting as we can as you're taking the time out to watch us this afternoon. A special hello to anyone that's watching us due to the school strikes that are taking place today. Afternoon, Sophie. Hope you enjoy the session on Revit this afternoon. Although you have no idea what Revit is, hopefully it will be useful or interesting to see Daddy making a fool of himself on YouTube Live nonetheless. So I hope you're having fun today on your impromptu day off. So without any further ado, let's jump into Revit and have a little look at the design options and the phasing tools to show you how useful they are, because actually they're actually really useful tools in the workflow. So let's just shrink myself down and share my screen. So again, as always, whilst I'm using Revit 23, this functionality, as far as I can remember, to a certain degree inside of Revit, certainly the supported years of Autodesk releases, 3 to 5 years, you'll have no missing functionality from what you're about to see, and no problem following this along using those particular tools. And as always, again, we're going to start from a completely fresh file, just so that you can see the entire process of setting this up, getting it working, and in a nutshell what it's doing, so it's really straightforward and simple for you, rather than showing you this complete finished solution that looks great but doesn't actually show you how to get there. I like starting from the beginning and really taking you through the process. So I've just opened a default Revit construction template. It's off the shelf, and there's no configurational changes in here versus what you might have if you've just installed Revit for the first time, whether you're a student or whether you're using Revit in industry. Apologies for a little bit of bang in the background. We're still having work done here at HQ in Tame in Oxfordshire. Once it's all done, I'll take us on a YouTube Live around the building and show you around all the new work. But it's a bit noisy, but hopefully it's not too disruptive. So let's start with phasing in Revit. So what phasing does in Revit is it allows you to control what's visible and what's not visible on your floor plans. Think of it a little bit like a view filter, but to be able to control different stages of a project. So if I just start by placing down some really simple geometry, let's just place a rectangular shaped building. I'm not fussed at all about the size or shape of this, but I'm just going to throw together a really simple, some walls, a floor, a ceiling, and a roof will do for the purpose of this. And then that'll allow you to see what's going on. So let's place those components down. Let's place down a floor. Let's go on to my reflected ceiling plan at level 0 and place a suspended ceiling. 600 by 600 grid is fine. I will align that to my plasterboard. he says, having to zoom in a very long way to be able to visually see his plasterboard due to his eyes. Where are you? Where are you gone, plasterboard? What wall did I use? Did I use a wall with plasterboard? I did. Back to floor plan level 1. Yes, I did. Okay, never mind. And let's align. There we go. It's back. Let's align. We'll use this one down here. That one to there. Good. So what we have is a floor, 4 walls, a ceiling, and let's just go up to level 1 and just place a very basic roof. No, not a floor. A very basic roof, roof by footprint. We'll extend it about 250 millimeters. Don't define a slope. Go all the way around, and then I will define slope on these two, just to give it a bit of a gable there. Good. So we've got something that represents a very simple building, okay? And this is a great starting point for what I want to show you. So phasing in Revit, if you go to your Manage tab along the top, towards the right-hand side, you have a panel called Phasing. And if you click on Phases, you'll see that we have project phases, we have phase filters, and we have graphics overrides. Now, I'd implore you to go in here and set this up before you start. Generally speaking, if you know that you're going to want to use phases, try and figure out what they're going to be and set them up beforehand. Otherwise, you could come up with some, not necessarily problems, but it makes it a little bit more complicated to get started. But essentially, what we have is project phases. Now, you always start with 2. Revit will always give you 2 in a default template, an existing phase and a new construction. Okay, but we can add as many as we want to. Okay, so I can just say insert before to add a new phase before the existing, or insert it after to add a phase after the existing. We can remove these phases if we want to, just by combining them. So we can combine them with the previous and combine them with the next. So rather than delete them, it's combine. The reason we have combine is because these could have geometry associated to them. If you delete the phase, the geometry is going to have a hissy fit and not know what to do. So we set up our phases. For the purpose of what we want here, I'm going to just leave it as existing in new construction because actually it works fine for the example that I want to give today. But you could have in here proposed phase 1, proposed phase 2, so on and so forth. And actually, maybe we will do that. So maybe we'll just say new construction phase 1, and let's have another one in after, and call that new construction phase 2, like so. We'll apply that on there. So we set up our phase names. We can give them a description if you want to. And then we essentially have our filters. So our filters will define how we want things to display in general. Okay, so is it just displayed the way that your view template is configured? Is it overridden to a specific graphic override? More on that in a second. Or is it hidden and not displayed at all? So for each one of these phases, okay, so we have show demolished, show new construction, show previous and demolished, show new construction and show previous, okay? For each one of those, we can define how new things shown, how existing things are shown, and how demolished things are shown, so on and so forth. We then have graphics overrides for each one of those to control whether it's a dashed line, is it highlighted in a different color, and we'll start touching that as we go through. So if we apply an OK out of there, if I select these walls, or go into a 3D view is probably better and just select all of this geometry. Okay, so I'm just going to put a window selection around the entire lot. What we can do when you've got something selected is scroll down and you've got this phasing here. You've got to make sure that you actually select some geometry because I put a window around the whole lot there. It doesn't give me the phasing, probably because I've got the levels selected here. So let's just deselect the levels. And then if you scroll all the way down, you've got this phasing within the instance properties. So every component can have a phase created and a phase demolished. Okay, so we choose when those components are created within our phased plan. So for this example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select these components and I'm going to say that that was existing geometry. Okay. From there, you can see that the color style of those components have changed in my 3D view, and the visibility of those components in my 2D view has also changed. They've gone from having full detail with regards to their sectional information, and they're now just showing as a solid lump. The reason for that is those graphics overrides. Again, if we go into our phase options, I've set them as existing, and if we look at the phase filters, we can see that our existing geometry under our graphics override is displayed with grey lines, okay, and it's displayed with this phase existing material, so it's just a flat grey shade, okay. So therefore it's changed the way that the project looks. If I start drawing more, so if I go to my wall tool and say that I want to place in a 75mm stud partition, before I start drawing, I can say that, he says, I thought you could choose the phase before you start drawing. Maybe not. So we're going to come in and start drawing some internal partitions. So again, I'm just going to make this up as I go along. Place one there, and place one over here. For those walls, if we come and have a look at them, they're fully detailed. We can select them, and again, we have each of those phases. So we can select these and say that they're new construction phase 1. So I can select all of these walls and say that phase 1 of this particular project, we're going to build these walls. We're going to place a external door. That's a horrible external door. Let's just go and select a new one. Let's go into our metric library. Oh, what's happened to my content? It was here last week. Why is it not here now? I did do an update. It looks like it's broken my content. We'll stick with the door. There's nothing wrong with the door. It works really nicely. So we stick with the default door. Let's stick it in there. And then we're going to stick in a couple of internal doors. Let's just go with an 810 internal door just here. And let's go with a 1010 accessible internal door just here. And again, all of those components, we can select them individually or by group, and we can choose what phase that they relate to. So I've got these internal walls and these doors as phase 1. Maybe we'll select the external door here and say that that was existing. So we had an empty building, and then we've decided to put some internal partitions in it. What we can then do is add further geometry. So maybe let's add some more walls to keep this really straightforward, and say that actually what we wanted to do in phase 2 was add a second room over here, and add a second room over here. Let's add an existing, create similar, and add that door over here. And let's create similar on this door and add it over here. This geometry I'm now going to select and say that that was created during new construction phase 2. You'll notice it disappears. Why? Well as the individual components having their own phase selection, our view also has a phase that it's looking at. And by default, if I go and scroll down, we can see that with nothing selected, we have the view phasing is on show all on a phase of new construction 1. So it's going to show all of the geometry that exists when we're in new construction phase 1. In other words, those walls and doors that I've just drawn, they don't exist yet because they're in new construction phase 2. If I change it to show all in new construction phase 2, it will show me the stuff that's in new construction phase 2 in normal, bold, if you like, everything else in grey from a previous phase, and anything that would become demolished, like the openings here, for these doors will become a dashed line. And once again, it's doing that through manage, phases, and in your phase filters and graphics override, it's controlling how those components look and how it should highlight them. If I want to make the highlight one maybe a little bit more specific, I can make an override for highlights and say that I want my demolished stuff to be highlighted in kind of a shade of red, for example. So let's do that here. If I apply those and OK, did I change the wrong one? Don't think I changed the wrong one. Demolished projection. Oh, we're on cut, aren't we? So let's say in there we're going to have pattern is red and pattern is red. Okay, apply, okay. So we can start making changes to how we want that demolished area to look. And talking about demolition, if I go back and change this to existing only, so I have an existing view, it might be that I want to make some changes to my existing view. Maybe in my existing component, I've got a big old window here. So my existing design has a big window there, for example. That particular component, it's on existing, okay, and it's not demolished. If I go and change the view to phase one, you can see that that window is basically ends up where there's a wall. So on this particular phase, I could select component and I could say that it's demolished. You can use the little hammer up here to say it's demolished, or you can change when it was demolished over here in the phase filter. Hit the demolish, select the item, and it will show you that that is demolished. The idea here is what you end up with is the ability to create these as separate views. So I've got level 0. I'm going to rename that. I'm going to say that this is going to be level 0 dash existing. I'm then going to duplicate the view, and I'm going to say that this is level 0 phase 1. I'm going to say duplicate view level 0 demolition plan. And then I'm going to create a last one that's called phase 2. What you'll end up with is these separate views, which it might be that you need to create some details for. So with each one of those, level 0 existing, I can change this so that the phase that the view is using is existing. I can then look at my phase 1 view and say that I want to show complete and show new construction phase 1. Okay. New construction, show all, show complete. When I show complete, it shows the things that have been demolished as demolished and everything else as complete. Phase 1 demolition plan, we want to show maybe just this component, in which case we say just show demolition or show previous and demolition. And then phase 2 is showing complete for phase 2. Just hide some of these views, I've opened them too many times. So then if we look at our existing model, it looks like this. Phase 1 demolition plan, we need to demolish this window. Phase 1 will then look like this. Phase 2 will then look like this. And you can create as many or as little of these as you want, and again go around and configure the colors, the shading, and the override on the graphics. So it's quite easy to go through and configure, you know, this is how my project is going to work. And it works quite well. Again, set up your phases, select your objects, add your phases to your objects, and then tell your views what you do and what you don't want it to show. The main thing is to get that right. Once you've got that, again, these phase filters don't show anything from a phase perspective, show all geometry that's existing, complete, and demolished. Show complete is only the completed works for that phase. Demolished and new only won't show the existing stuff. Just go through and it's fairly straightforward. Now there are some if, buts and maybes here and just some things to be cautious about. Remember down here that I've deleted this window. That has been demolished as part of the phase 1 works. Now you'll notice that if I hover over it, I've got a wall there, but that wall is only spanning the size of that window, so where the window was. So I have this wall and I have this wall, okay? We've got to be careful at things like that in certain scenarios. So let's imagine that we had something that was slightly different, just to give you this scenario before we move on. If I go to my existing, and let's imagine for the purpose of this, I'm going to create similar here, and let's just extend this like so. Let's imagine that we had a situation like that. So I was building a new bit of external dwelling, if you like, but I've still got my external wall that's running here. So clearly you'd want to have some form of opening here. Yes, we could just put a door in there, but what if you want to open it up? Think about an extension on a house or something like that. So you actually want to open that up so it's part of the same space. For that, we could use a wall opening, but how do I choose to open a wall and show that that wall needs to be demolished? So there's certain things that you need to be aware of. So there's my existing. If I go to my phase one now, let's just select those walls. You'll notice that I've got this wall on existing is now huge, whereas on phase one I've got the same thing. So what you'd actually want to show is my existing wall would go to here, and then when you create a new one, you'd want to turn the joins off. So you'd want to say disallow joins, and you'd want to draw that so that it doesn't join against the corner, but it does join against this wall here. So we want to disallow joins. We then want to select allow join on this side and drag it into place. We now have these walls that are on phase one, construction, and these ones that are on existing. If we now go across to our phase one view, great, we've got this, but we want to show an opening over here. So if I go to architecture and go to wall opening, I can select my wall, I can place an opening like so, and I can select that opening, and you'll notice that that's locked. That's locked to the existing phase because the wall's on the existing phase. And that's really frustrating because I don't want it there on the existing phase, but I do want it there on phase one. So you need to be quite careful with things like this. Just think about how you're drawing it in Revit and what it's trying to do from a filtering perspective. It's very difficult for it to use this wall opening tool on a wall that's created in existing when that opening, which is only existing on the wall because of the wall, exists in the phase after. So in this instance, what you might want to do is on your existing plan, think about this wall and how you're splitting it up. So you might say that you want to have that wall drawn into parts on your existing plan so that you can quite easily delete it or add the opening specifically in the phase plan. So just think about the way in which you position that workflow. Sometimes you have to draw the geometry in a certain way to have Revit understand what it is. Okay, so what works quite nicely is if I was to draw the wall from here to here, turn off joins, draw another wall. Yes, they are in the first phase, but then we can demolish this part of the wall in phase one and either create a new one with an opening or just put the opening in it. Okay, so it's just some different types of workaround, but it works quite nicely. Moving on to design options. Design options are just as straightforward really when it comes to Revit. So design options allow you to control the type of design that you have and maybe different options against that design. So if we start again from scratch, and again we'll just draw the same real straightforward shape for the purpose of this. I'm really not fussed with regards to the size. I should have saved it on the, I've turned off allows joins now, haven't I? I should have saved it before doing the phases, but never mind. Again, much like with phases, my recommendation is have these to a certain degree configured before you start drawing. Even more so than with phases because they can be really quite finicky. So let's come in and create my walls, my floor. Let's go, and I'm going to be lazy and not go to a reflected ceiling plan. Don't think badly of me. Let's go into a roof as well and just place a roof on there. Overhang all the way around. I'll do the same thing as last time. Why my tab button's not working, I don't know. Hey ho. Let's go and let's choose a different gable end. Let's go and define slopes there and there. That'll do. Attach. So I've got my basic building. And let's say that, much like last time, I have a door to come into the building, but then I want to explore two options with the client. It's to do with these bars at the bottom. Okay, so these bars are the design options on the right hand side. The left hand side is your work sets. More on that in another session. So design options, you can either come and click this button just here, or you can go up to manage and you can choose design options. So from this button, if we open it up, we get a dialog box where we can see what we're editing and any options that we have in the model. So think about it is that what we're doing is we're drawing a load of stuff in a single model. Some of that might be almost duplicated, but you're having to duplicate it for the purpose of having different options there. So I have a main model, which is anything that exists across all options. In this case, the core of my building. From there, I can create option sets. This option set 1 can have several options. So maybe let's rename this and call this internal options. We then have option 1 and option 2. Let's say that option 1 is going to be renamed to open plan, and option 2 is going to be renamed to cozy separate living spaces. So we can create as many options as we want to, but try and think about what you're going to want to create before you draw too much geometry. Okay? So then, once we've turned that on, we have this drop down available to us. And it's important that we choose the right drop down dependent on what we're doing. So at the moment, I'm designing things that are relevant across all options. So I have main model selected. But the second that I want to start designing something that is specific to an option, we want to make a change. So I'm going to go in under internal options and I'm going to do two potential layouts for this design. So let's go open plan. You notice the other functions turn grey, or the other geometry turns grey. I can't edit them, okay, because they're in the main model. They can't be changed from within an option. I'm then going to go to my wall tool. I'm going to grab my 75mm stud and I'm going to draw some options. So I want a hallway, regardless of whether or not this is open plan. So let's have a nice size hallway like so. And then let's maybe have a separate wall over there. Alongside that, maybe I want to have a wall opening. So it's a nice big open plan. Don't know what's happened with that opening. Go away. So we've got a nice big open plan. So let's imagine we have a hallway with a staircase up to the second floor. We have a big open plan living area, and maybe this is going to be a kitchen diner. Okay, but it's all open plan and flowing. From there, if you want to, we can come into the window and we can start placing windows on options. So I can say, in this option, I want to have a window there. Oh, we can't because they're on a different option. Of course I can't. Think back to the original rule. You can't edit stuff that's on the main option. So we've got our open plan living. If I change this to cozy separate living area, I can then come in and design that particular space. So in that area, maybe I want to have, again, I want to have my hallway, but then I want to have this kind of configurational change here, where I've got kitchen diner, maybe come into the living area, and then maybe even that massive living area is split with a separate room in the corner, I don't know. But we've got some separate areas, and then maybe inside that we've got some, oh, not windows, we've got some doors, that one there, and we're just going to be really lazy and say one there, and one. Create similar over there. There's the study. Okay, so I've got all these different options. We then can flip between option 1 and option 2. And we can have as many different options as we want. And essentially what Revit is doing is it's turning those options on and off. So for the purpose of this, let's just go back to my main model. And against my main model, let's go and put in a nice big curtain wall, an empty curtain wall. Let's embed it just so that we can see from the outside in without having to section the model. Go into 3D, let's just pull that down a little bit underneath the ceiling. So there is my open plan. Let's change my main model to cozy separate living, and there is my cozy separate living, so on and so forth. We have different views, so we can have level 0. But you'll notice that against this, there's no design options in here. So what you can't do is have a different drawing pack based on, you know, the design option that's open. If I duplicate this and say copy one, I want to look at open plan. When I go and look at level 0, it's still on open plan. If I try and change this to cozy, then the copy is still on cozy. Okay, so what you have is some slightly different ways of working when we compare this to the phasing. Okay, so just be wary about that. If you're showing phases, think about the fact that I've got my views, 3D, 2D, renders, whatever they might be, Enscape walkthrough, they are linked to whatever option is active. I can have as many different option sets as I want. We have the main model, it's never editable outside of the main model environment. You can only edit the bits within your particular option set. You can add and remove as necessary from those, okay? But you need to go back to the main model if you wanted to make any changes from here, okay? So it's a different way of working, but it does allow you quite nicely to come in and control different types of design option and then position them in front of a client. If I was stood here in front of a client, I could open Twinmotion or I can open Enscape. I can quickly flick between those design options and very easily demonstrate or present those to that client. Once you've got your options and you're happy with your options, we can accept the options and then those will become, you know, the part of the main model, if you like, and the process will go round and round and round. So if we decided that we wanted the open plan, we can choose that we want to, you know, to accept the primary one here, the open plan. We choose to accept the primary option, and you'll notice that the options are now gone, and we only have one model. Everything else is deleted. Basically, it's been removed from the model. So be wary, but also really nice functionality, and it works really well. So hopefully that gives you some different workflows that will work nicely for you. And really, apart from the fact that my tea's gone cold, which is hugely disappointing, that's all I wanted to show today. So thank you very much for watching. I hope it's been useful. Again, don't forget to follow us on all the relevant social channels. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, and more importantly, let us know what you want to see. As much as I like coming on here and talking about whatever it is that we decide to talk about for that week, go onto LinkedIn and vote for what you want to see. Leave us some feedback, check out our other videos, and don't forget to give us a like, give us a subscribe, turn on notifications so that you can see whenever we put new content up. And when we go live, we put new content up weekly, not just these particular sessions. But other than that, please enjoy the rest of your week. Happy Thursday, on to Friday tomorrow and the weekend, which is fantastic news for everyone. Take care, and we'll see you again, same time next week. Goodbye.